So let's go into a couple different types of disorders. Let's start with Parkinson's. Parkinson's, you have a lack of dopamine in your system. You don't have enough dopamine. So you're more likely, if you were to take a dopamine decreaser, you'd be more likely to have Parkinson's disease in the long run. So let's say you take something like risperidone or Seroquel, or maybe a different kind of dopamine decreaser, but those are like the two big ones. You're more likely to develop a series or set of side effects of Parkinson's disease. So that can happen. Now, let's go into what can happen if you have too much dopamine in your system. And granted, it matters on what your brain is, how things go. Too much dopamine in your system can lead to a form of psychosis, delusional thinking, processing, which can sometimes be misinterpreted as schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, series of sets and conditions. So yes, too much dopamine in your system can lead to psychosis, which once again can look like schizophrenia or otherwise. Issue. So if you're on a dopamine enhancer, you have to be really, really careful, especially if you're in like some of these substance abuse places. They will give you that dopamine enhancer. Issue, once again, is it can cause erratic behavior. It depends. It is pharmacogenetics. But yes, too much dopamine can cause one schizophrenic look to someone, or can lead to psychosis, or third case can lead to seizures if you have too much dopamine in your system. Now, let's talk about other things that it does. A dopamine decreaser is something called alcohol. Alcohol is an issue as well. So we've talked about multiple different things of dopamine decreasing and increasing, right? So all these things need to be very carefully regulated. If they are not, it can lead to destabilization, especially if you have a dopamine increaser and a dopamine decreaser. What this does is at the wrong levels or too high levels of one or the other, it is irresponsible for a psychiatrist to up to a huge extent a dopamine decreaser when you are on a dopamine increaser, even if something happens. So if you have a psychiatrist and you're on a dopamine increaser and she puts you on, or he puts you on a dopamine decreaser, she or he is being incredibly irresponsible. Remember, it's a finite balance between dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine. So, for example, norepinephrine can only be indoctrinated if you have fatty foods, healthy fatty acids. But we're just talking about dopamine, because dopamine is the main pleasure receptor. It is the main one that helps you have cognition and clear thought. Too much or too little is a problem. So once again, what have we learned? Dopamine needs to be regulated very, very, out of any other type of brain chemical, dopamine needs to be regulated very carefully. Too much of a dopamine decreaser can lead to Parkinson's, or can lead to mood fluctuations that are very destabilized, and especially if you're on a dopamine increaser. Once again, these will be put on if you have any of the subjects of Parkinson's, not schizoid, what's the word? Sorry, very tired here. Psychosis behavior, that will happen. Or if you have a seizure, they'll normally put you on a semi-dopamine decreaser or something of that nature. All right, thanks for watching.